OG Lee in the house once again, once again. Thank goodness, thank goodness. So I've got to get on to the anti-Semitic theme because they got Nick Cannon. Viacom fired him for his anti-Semitic remarks. And then recently on Twitter, they said Ice Cube had some anti-Semitic remarks. And of course, we know Deshaun Jackson talked about the Jews with their plan for world domination. And I'm going to tell you three brothers, you carry on, because what we have to deal with is what I'm going to term, and I'm going to coin this term, the Jewish distraction. One of the things that I hear a lot of people talking about who are agreeing with people talking about people making anti-Semitic remarks, they keep saying is that people need to study history, because the things that people are saying, they thinking are so out of character for Jewish people. And they're so anti-Semitic, and they say you need to know your history about how blacks and Jews were such allies.
And it all comes down to, I feel, people's actual ignorance about history, because, you know, I don't feel like you can run around and say, respect me if I'm not respecting you. If you don't know history, don't say anything until you figure it out. I don't understand. I mean, am I crazy?
I'm always surprised when you hear, especially someone that's African American, spout anti-Semitism, because there is such a long history, and Whoopi, you know this, of, well, we all know this, of, you know, Jewish people in the civil rights movement being such allies to African Americans. The notion that anyone that's African American has that blind spot. I've never had that blind spot, and maybe it's because my mother's father is Jewish. I don't know. I don't quite understand someone that, again, would be a member of an oppressed group and would spout anything that would be anti-Semitic. It doesn't connect with me, and I'm disappointed when I hear something like that from Nick Cannon or something like that from Deshaun Jackson. I think it's unacceptable, and I think that they do need to be held accountable for it.
I'm happy that there is actually reaction and outrage to Nick Cannon's blatant anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is on the rise in this country. 4% of Jews surveyed think that anti-Semitism is on the rise in the past 5 years.
Well, you know, people need to start reading their history. They really do. I mean, at this point in time, the 20th century, the Nazis killed 6 million Jews for no reason other than that they were Jewish. Look who the enemy is. It is not your Jewish brother, okay? Get smart, get some education, read up on it. Otherwise, shut up. If he reads history and he watches films about World War II, he would not say such stupid things. So something's wrong with him. Jews have always been the go-to scapegoats in the world over the centuries. It's enough already.
This is the Jewish distraction. And I say this with all due respect to Jewish people, because I'm going to break it down. If you're talking about history, then you know about the Israeli war between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And you know then that in 1967 or pre-1967, that land was called Palestine. So how did it become Israel? It became Israel because they took it from the Palestinians with the help of America. And so that first is where the argument needs to start, or not the argument, but the debate. Because if you want to be accurate in terms of history, how did Palestine become Israel? And so the bottom line is, if you look at present day, while we're being distracted in America, Israel keeps encroaching on Palestinian territories, building settlements. So after they took the land, the country itself, there were lines drawn. But as I speak, the Israelis continue to take more and more land from the Palestinians, and no one in the world is paying attention. And so if they're doing this against the world, right? I mean, they're doing it against the world order. They are doing it against the world. In other words, they're thumbing their nose. While people are trying to talk about what might be realistic, which is a Palestinian and an Israeli, communion, how can that be when they keep encroaching on Palestinian territory and building more and more settlements? And then what did Trump do? He moves the embassy, right? So this is a distraction, because if you look at under Benjamin Netanyahu how brazen the Israelis have been, I mean, it's off the chain. But I want black people to think about this. And you really need to think about this when you try to be against Deshaun Jackson talking about a new world order, when you try to be against Ice Cube, when you try to be against Nick Cannon. I want you to think about something. African people, as you know, we are migrators, right? African people get treated like shit in Israel. And I want you to look at it on the record. The Israelis despise Africans so much, they've even went as far as paying them to leave. And if you look at how Israeli people treat black people, you would not talk anything about anything anti-Semitic, anything. And speaking on history, if you look at some of the oldest living Jews that have some of the longest histories, the Falasha Jews, who appear to be black. I know most people don't watch Fox. Every night there's a commercial, or just about every night, there's a commercial that runs. And it is about some kind of Jewish foundation. I think it's IDLF or IDFL, something like that. But anyway, their reason for being is to try to get people to donate money to Holocaust survivors. And they show these images the same as they show those images of young African kids, all, destitute, flies all around them. They show the same image minus the flies. And those Jewish people from what they call the Holocaust received reparations from Germany. Jewish people, on their own admission, have some of the most successful people in the world. The diaspora in America, you've got probably 4 or 5 billionaires that are Jewish. The Jewish diaspora in America has enough money to take care of anyone, any amount of people that are Holocaust survivors. Because look how long that is. And if you watch the commercial, you see the people, they like 80s or whatever. So why could not the Jewish diaspora, coupled with those German reparations, be able to take care of the Holocaust survivors? See, that's what really makes me think that there's a distraction that's going on. Today we could go to Israel. And I guarantee you they probably even stepped it up. And I'm sure that they did step it up under the Trump administration, which is constantly encroaching on Palestinian territory, taking more and more of it. And we know something, that once you start building settlements, and they know it, there's nobody going to turn around and say, okay, we're going to give this back to the Palestinians. So while we're being distracted, and remember now, Americans, the Israeli people, the country of Israel, gets the most foreign aid of anyone that we as Americans give to anyone. And they are taking total advantage of the Palestinian people. So why do people keep talking about anti-Semitism? It's a distraction for them to keep stealing the land from the Palestinians. I'm saying what I'm saying with all respect to Jews, because I don't understand how people, the least little thing that you say about Jews, it comes across as being anti-Semitic to them. And they have so much power. This is why they're being able to cancel people at the drop of a hat. Minister Farrakhan is not a sinister person. So I think that anything you hear people say, you need to look into, as opposed to just canceling them right away. If you talk about history, don't just talk about recent history. Let's go back and see what the exploitation is. A lot of the comments that are made, not necessarily these that were made by Cannon and Deshaun and Ice Cube, but so many of the comments, especially a lot of the comments made by Minister Farrakhan, that they say are anti-Semitic, is actually real complimentary in a way. If they say that you're running the world, if they said that about blacks, I would say, hey, well, if we are smart enough and organized enough to run the world, what do you want us to do? As opposed to saying, oh, you're an anti-Negro or whatever, anti-black, anti-Afro-American, anti-nigger, whatever, right? It's not anything that is defaming you. If somebody says that, Jewish people are some of the most astute bankers, is it true? Go look at who's running the banking industry. Go look at some of the most decorated doctors. Go look at some of the most decorated lawyers. Go look at the Supreme Court. Now, Jews are a relatively small percentage of our population. If you look, they've got 3 and possibly 4 of the Supreme Court justices who have Jewish backgrounds. You go look at your hospital administrators. Man, look at your politicians. Look at your college administrators. Look at your college professors. The Jews run all this shit. And it's not anything that's defaming you. People are just saying what is. Why do you slap that anti-Semitism label on them and try to cancel people? Again, look at all of your major corporations in America. They normally are ran by Jewish people. So it's not a thing of saying we're defaming you by saying that Jews run everything. It's a fact. Let's analyze this. Let's open this conversation and start to see how Jews are so much of an integral part of America. Let's not just dismiss people and cancel shit and call it a day. Let's open up this conversation. So I've never done it before, but I'm asking people, share this video if you would, because I really would like to open up this conversation. And I really want to get to the part where we get back over into Israel and try to figure out why it is that the Israelis treat black African people so bad. Right? If you're going to turn around and say that somebody's going to be anti-you, you got to open up and ask yourself, hey, am I anti anything? And the thing about it is the proof is in the pudding. See, things are going to be revealed once we start pulling things back. That's why I say, let's open up this conversation. Let's stop letting Jewish people simply say this is anti-Semitic and cancel the show. Let's begin the conversation, because I think, as a matter of fact, I know it will start revealing that Jews are in very, very high places in America. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially given that you are a post-Holocaust survivors. And it was just in a very short amount of time. If you look at history, remember, black people were enslaved for 400 years, and still after this whole thing of post-slavery, post-Jim Crow, we are nowhere near, and we have nowhere near the accomplishments of Jewish people around the world, but especially in America. So we need to start looking at the fact that Jewish people continue to want to distract from the conversation and shut it down immediately. We need to start asking the question, why is that? Why is that? Because it's high time that we stop just canceling people for the least little thing, saying it's anti-Semitic. Now, we going through this whole Black Lives Matter and all of this racial stuff in America, and so they're using this time, because they canceled Nick right quick, because people are saying, well, we're not going to be tolerant of all of this type of anti-stuff, right? So they canceled him quick. But even before that, with Minister Farrakhan, with anybody who says anything that they just even detect as being the slightest thing against the Jewish people, they call them anti-Semitic. And again, because of their organization and because of the high places they're in, they're able to shut people down. And so let's bring this conversation to the forefront, because I mean, it's annoying for people to keep saying, oh, anti-Semitic. And let's open up the conversation to find out, why are these people saying this? Why do people feel like they do? And I want to just say this with all due respect, because I'm not a historian, but I would love to know if we could bring it out and discuss it, because all I learned in school was Hitler killed the Jews. Hitler's a bad man. I never heard too much into the explanation of why would a person want to kill these people. Why would he want to just erase them off the map? Just because they're Jewish? I understand that he said that it had a lot to do with their behavior and how they would turn a society out. And when I look at America, with all due respect, I'm starting to believe some of the things I read in Mein Kampf, because I did read enough of that to understand why I think he had it out for the Jews. But anyway, let's bring this conversation up. Let's start talking about it, and not let anybody, I don't care who it is, let's not let them get away with just canceling people on the strength of canceling them based on what they feel. Let's open up the conversation and start understanding each other. When you cancel someone and not let them have an explanation as to why they feel the way they do or why they have the stance that they have, you're really not letting both people or both sides, or however many sides, play on a fair court. And we need to open up this conversation, because I'm tired. I'm tired of people, the least little thing, oh, he's anti-Semitic. And before you know it, the person, they've lost their job, they've lost their livelihood, all on the strength that they said something that, in fact, a lot of times is very, very accurate. See, people, they're not analyzing it enough to see that, I mean, since just the last 50 years, the Jewish people have become so powerful globally that this is why people are thinking like Deshaun Jackson and saying that the Jews have a plan to try to dominate the world. I doubt that, because the Chinese people are right there with them. But we need a platform for people to be able to explain, to be able to air what they think, as opposed to saying, man, if I say this, man, I'm getting ready to get canceled. It's very important to let people speak their minds if you're in a free country. Anyway, this is OG Lee, and I'll see you again.